we have to be careful what we tell ourselves or things that we decide that can interfere with our health and fitness goals. And this is something that may sound kind of funny, but I've seen a real world example, and I want to chat with you guys a little bit about it. So, the reason it matters what we tell ourselves and promises we make and things like that is because we oftentimes put ourselves into a mindset when we're younger that interferes with things that we need when we're older. And a perfect example, I had a friend quite a few years ago. I mean, this was well over 10 years ago. So this was before I started doing content. This is before I even, started YouTube or any of that sort of stuff. So a friend of mine, she had gained, more weight than she was comfortable with. And she was getting to a point to where, hey, a doctor said, your blood pressure is getting higher. You need to work on this. You're seeing some signs of pre-diabetes. And she's like, I'm only 30 years old. And had previously been, fairly active jobs, things like that. But she'd been more sedentary for a while, and she was eating a lot of junk. Like it was, ice cream and all sorts of stuff. Like she ate ice cream every day. It's an example. And she started chatting with me about it, and she goes, well, I don't know what to do because I made a promise. She goes, when I was like 18 years old, as soon as I became an adult, I made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to be one of these miserable people who restricted what they eat. And so I told myself right then that I'm going to eat whatever I want and be happy, and I'm never going to restrict myself from foods that I enjoy. Right? And I'm never going to do that. And I'm just going to eat whatever I want and let it make me, and I'll just be happy. So I don't want to be unhappy from that. And I looked at her and I'm like, okay, you were immature, you were a child still at 18, because none of us are adults at 18. We're really not. Our mindset is not mature. Brains are not even done developing. And I'm like, so now because you made this silly, goofy, really immature, and quite frankly stupid promise to yourself as a child, that now as an adult, you're upset that you may need to change your behavior. So, this promise to you is more important than not developing diabetes or heart disease, right? Because your doctor's already said, hey, you're starting to look like you're pre-diabetic. So you were, are you really willing to do that? And she stopped and goes, oh, wow, I never thought about it that way. So she's like, for years and years, I've just maintained that promise that, I was going to eat whatever I enjoy eating as often as I want. And again, I mean, it was really like garbage junk food. Like she really had a thing for ice creams and just pouring tons of chocolate syrup and stuff on them. It's like eating that sort of thing before bed every single night. And she's just like, wow. So I was childish, and that was really stupid of me to even say something like that it was a promise that I made to myself. And the result was that because she had made this promise to herself, even though she, was a pretty active person, and even into horse riding and all sorts of other stuff. She was obviously becoming overweight and then having already health complications as a result, at a fairly young age, around 30. But it's because of something she told herself in a mindset. And had she just not done that and said, yeah, that's kind of silly. Obviously, we can't just eat anything or whatever we want. When we live in a society with access to limitless junk. Okay, we can't do that. Because if we do, that's why we have the health problems we have in America. It's why we do. It's a primary reason. Not lack of health care or anything else. We have the best health care in the world. Right? People can't afford it because they don't live healthy lifestyles. Right? It creates the problems that don't need to exist. So what I'm saying is you can't have that sort of mindset. You have other people, for whatever reason. I mean, I've seen people say other stuff. Well, I don't believe in weightlifting. I'm like, well, why? So then they decide they're not going to strength train or work out or lift because they just don't believe in it. And they make a decision and a mindset that, it's not really useful, it's not that good. And so then they don't do it when they could benefit from it. I mean, that's another perfect example. So I've seen people who are like that. And I'm like, well, why? Have you really even tried it? Do you know anything about it? And instead, they have a mindset like that when the research on strength training is amazing, right? If we went purely off the research, the data that we have, and everyone actually believed what the scientific research shows, most people would probably start weightlifting. Okay? When you see the sum total health benefits and what it does. And you don't even have to train that hard to get those benefits. You don't have to train as hard as I do. It's not necessary. But, again, it's a mindset. They just don't believe, and they tell themselves something. I just don't believe that. I had some in-laws years ago. I brought that up. Topics of cancers came up, and I said, lifting weights has been known in the research to reduce cancer. Oh, I don't believe that. Lifting weights is just a bunch of nonsense. I don't believe that. Again, so people just tell themselves silly things. Right? They tell themselves silly things. Had a client who was talking about eventually getting into personal training. That client's necessarily never been lean, and I tried to talk to him about counting calories. The person told me, well, I believe, and I've always told people that you don't have to count calories. It's not necessary in any way to be fit or in shape. And I'm like, yeah, that's not how it works. Like, your calorie count is what controls how fast you lose weight. So I'm like, you built a good strength base. And the person's like, well, yeah, he's squatting over 400 pounds, deadlifts over 500, but he really knows ideally he'd like to lose 30 pounds. And this came up. He's like, I really do. I've lost some weight, but I need to lose, I think, at least another 30 pounds, but I want to keep my strength while doing it. And I had to tell him, I'm like, well, look, you're going to have to count your calories to do that, because you're going to have to control the rate that you lose weight. It's like, what do you mean I can't just eat a little healthier? Just cut the bacon out and start jogging? I'm like, do you want to keep your muscle and strength while losing weight? You're going to have to count calories to control the rate of weight loss so that it's not too fast, or to even ensure that it happens. He's like, but I've always told people and told myself and believed that we don't have to. And I'm like, well, sorry, you're wrong. And the data shows that you're wrong. The best experts will all tell you you're wrong. You've told yourself some silly thing, almost to the point where he felt like I've almost made myself a promise that I would never count calories. I'm like, but you want to lose 30 pounds. And you want to keep your muscle and strength. So you're going to have to give up that silly belief. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.